Monster Beverage Corporation is without a doubt one of the best two-way players in the beverage game, but it's hard to argue another Best Defender in the Industry award isn't warranted after that recent brand development announcement. So I'll help decode that introductory statement a bit later in this content, but since Monster Beverage Corporation did just release their latest quarterly earnings, it would be reasonable to start with a financial overview. And I'll be utilizing those financial documents along with notes I took while listening to the earnings conference call and any relevant publicly disclosed information to obviously update you on how the existing brands within Monster Beverage portfolio have been performing recently, but more importantly, utilize everything as the contextual backdrop for my expanded strategic commentary on global energy drink market dynamics and trends. So starting off with Monster Beverage Corporation revenue, the entire portfolio generated quarterly net sales of $2.2 billion, which was up 15.1% year over year on a constant currency basis. Also, net sales grew about 4% on a quarter over quarter sequential basis. Then, in terms of geographic performance, United States makes up about 57% of the total net sales, yet international is outperforming the US market, growing 19.1% year over year on a constant currency basis. But let's examine the quarterly performance a bit deeper, as Monster Beverage Corporation comprises 4 segments, and the largest is aptly named Monster Energy Drinks, even though the segment also includes commercial activity from Reign Total Body Fuel, Reign Storm, and Bang Energy. In the third quarter of 2025, the Monster Energy Drink segment was responsible for slightly over 92% of the total net sales and reported 16% year-over-year growth on a constant currency basis. Consequently, the other 3 segments are obviously much smaller, but the next largest is named Strategic Brands, which is primarily a collection of energy drink brands that Monster Beverage acquired in the Coca-Cola Company trade from June 2015. The Strategic Brands segment includes energy drinks like NOS and Full Throttle, sold mostly in the US market, along with affordable energy drinks like Predator and Fury, sold internationally. And those energy drink brands collectively grew quarterly net sales 13.2% year over year on a constant currency basis. Lastly, the remaining 2 segments I'll only briefly mention as alcohol brands that resulted from the early 2022 Canarchy Craft Brewing Collective acquisition and Monster Beverage owning a small flavor company called American Fruits and Flavors is not relevant to this content piece. But overall, as you likely gathered from the record quarterly performance from the second largest energy drink brand portfolio in the world, the global energy drinks category continues to demonstrate solid growth. And while company leadership noted results for the quarter reflect the success of product innovations, it more specifically lauded the significant impact from Monster Energy Ultra, a line extension launched 13 years ago in response to consumer demand for low-calorie, sugar-free energy drinks. However, with quote-unquote innovation remaining central to the long-term growth strategy at Monster Beverage, maybe this would be a good time to turn our attention fully back in the direction of what I was mentioning in the introductory statement. And it might be super helpful if I recall a few minutes of super pertinent insights shared within a content piece from February 2023. Hakeem Olajuwon, Deion Sanders, Ivan Rodriguez, Bobby Orr, Monster Beverage Corporation. What do these names all have in common? They are some of the greatest defensive players in the history of their respective sports. Offense and defense are terms that we're mostly familiar with when we're talking about sports, but these words are also applicable in business strategy. The easiest way to think about offensive versus defensive business strategy is that when a company is playing offense, it's making investments that move the business forward. Alternatively, when a company is playing defense, it's making investments to prevent potential downside. Offensive and defensive strategies are equally important, but when you utilize them depends on a number of different considerations. Like, what does the competitive landscape look like? Where is the company's market leadership position currently?
and maybe what internal constraints is the company dealing with at this time. Plus, you need to account for various marketplace dynamics, which the answers to all these considerations could mean an offensive heavy or a defensive heavy strategic game plan would yield more short or long term value generation. So, who's the king of defense in the beverage CPG world right now? Now, if I was the one voting on this totally made up award, I would give it to Monster Beverage Corporation. Now, I don't want to imply that Monster Beverage Corporation doesn't also play some great offense, but being that they're now neck and neck with Red Bull for leadership in the US energy drinks market, you've seen the lime green machine start to rebalance risk reward more recently. Defensive strategies, especially defensive product strategies, are less risk laden for a market leader. Yes, product innovation will continue to be a key growth driver and an important tool to meet the shifting needs of today's consumers. But Monster Beverage Corporation knows that if competitors beat them to market, that rarely means that there'll be untold riches for those competitors and subsequent death to their company. In fact, often it's the other way around, with Nielsen estimating that around 30,000 new CPG products launch each year, and around 9 out of every 10 of them won't survive their first few years in market. Managing innovation risk by deploying a defensive posture is increasingly important right now when companies are dealing with the volatility and uncertainty. Since defensive product strategies have diminishing returns, companies like Monster Beverage Corporation take the approach of trying to find the absolute minimum necessary to de risk the situation they're defending against, but any investment beyond that point likely doesn't generate much value. So, any additional time or focus or resources won't generate additional upside and would be better spent focused on offensive initiatives in other areas to move the business forward. Taking all the right defensive actions while also leaning into the volatility and using it as a catalyst to galvanize action around new opportunities is what Monster Beverage Corporation leadership has been preaching. But let's run through a few recent examples of Monster Beverage Corporation's defensive product strategies. I think the most obvious and or the most famous example would be the launch of Rain Total Body Fuel. For this to kind of hit you really hard, we need to transport ourselves back to late 2018 when this product concept was likely approved and headed towards production for an April 2019 launch. Bang Energy was lighting the beverage world on fire. They were on a crash course to reshuffle the top three energy drinks market leadership for the first time since 2007 and reach $1 billion in revenue. Bang Energy had taken inspiration from its sports nutrition industry roots and created a kind of new energy drink subcategory called performance energy. There looked to be no signs of stopping Bang Energy, so Monster Beverage Corporation created a Me Too defensive product to slow down Jack Owoc. Did it work? Maybe, but if we play back the demise of Bang Energy through our rose colored hindsight glasses, we will probably emphasize internal competitor failures over the success of Reign. A more recent example of a Monster Beverage Corporation defensive product launch would be Reign Storm. The white packaging design, the slim 12-ounce can, the upper rim calling out burns fat. If you're feeling like you've seen this before, yep, Rain Storm is a direct shot at Celsius. But I just want to end on some quick final thoughts and ponder what the next Monster Beverage Corporation defensive product launch could be. Well, if history gives us any indication, then soon another high-flying energy drink will be on Monster's hit list.
Obviously, a lot has happened over the last almost 3 years within the energy drinks market, but as if my broken watch can still tell time correctly twice daily, I've seemed to rightly predict that another high-flying energy drink brand, or I guess brands, would eventually be on the Monster Beverage hit list. So as I mentioned earlier, recent business performance has been relatively great at Monster Beverage, but that doesn't mean it's benefited from every underlying growth driver powering the energy drinks market. Amid a slew of distribution partnerships, investments, and acquisitions, the biggest success stories of the past several years have come to energy drink brands reaching towards female consumers. And the massive continued achievements by Alani Nu and record-breaking early categorical results from Bloom Nutrition must have finally signaled the future is female to Monster Beverage, because they just announced the upcoming first quarter of 2026 launch of FLRT. Initially debuting in 4 flavors, FLRT will be positioned as a zero sugar, female focused energy drink brand. On the website, it states that FLRT was born from a simple idea: energy should be as vibrant, fearless, and fun as the women who drink it. And while totally understanding and respecting the strategic defensive move from Monster Beverage, I didn't need to read the overwhelmingly negative comments from pundits to know FLRT wasn't going to be well received online. I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but since energy drinks are marketed as lifestyle brands that offer beverages with a functional benefit of caffeine, authenticity matters a lot. So while Alani Nu and Bloom Nutrition were each co-founded by female fitness influencers, Monster Energy is the epitome of such longtime mainstays of energy drink marketing like extreme sports and bikini models that for some time suggested the only valuable categorical consumer were young males. But that overwhelmingly negative sentiment online obviously shows the brand identity of Monster Energy is so entrenched that consumers feel it seems grossly inauthentic to suddenly pivot now, only after female-focused energy drink brands have experienced varying degrees of success. And even if Monster Beverage toiled with the idea of female-focused energy drinks more than a decade ago, it likely wouldn't have been successful because 1, it was probably too early, but 2, it probably still would have appeared inauthentic. Instead, if Monster Beverage wants to become liked by female consumers, it probably needs a more dramatic strategic plan. But unlike much of big CPG that seems to fully acknowledge it needs to transform itself for survival currently, I'd guess the Monster Beverage leadership feels like they're almost immune to those same troubles. Yet there has been this remarkable transformation happening within the energy drinks market. For much of the last decade, there has been this flywheel effect of categorical demand growth, and to compete for consumer attention, brand proliferation has utilized different wellness-focused marketing strategies and functional ingredients. Yet, resulting fragmentation arguably increased product and brand discoverability, giving the energy drinks market this almost sixth sense ability to evolve and appeal to a wider range of consumers with varied needs. To go one step further, energy drinks have become status symbols, or basically aspirational mixtures representing lifestyle, taste, and identity by association. And with modern energy drink consumers, which have essentially fueled one of the fastest growing segments in beverage, Monster Beverage doesn't hold the same market leadership power dynamics. So what does Monster Beverage need to do next if it wants to become more liked by female consumers? The most straightforward idea would be to acquire the next largest female-focused and female-founded energy drink brand. But Gorgie would need to grow substantially before it's sizable enough to survive in the Coca-Cola DSD distribution system. A few years ago, Monster Beverage created an in-house incubator called Monarchy that would utilize mostly independent beer distributors already aligned with its alcohol brand segment, but I'm unsure if that's still operating currently. Therefore, from a timing perspective, Monster Beverage needs a different, in the meantime, strategic plan that could dramatically shift the company culture and build a more diversified public perception. Equally, any larger M&A transaction by Monster Beverage would need to complement the Coca-Cola portfolio, or it wouldn't make sense distribution strategy-wise. Thus, how about I leave you with this idea? Monster Beverage should acquire Olipop. And I'm totally not rage baiting by not providing my detailed logic, but I would love to hear comments on what you think.
But I hope you enjoyed the first principles thinking that went into my latest YouTube video. If you did, can you do me a favor by hitting that like button? That quick and free action helps YouTube know my content is worth spreading to more people. Also, we're getting really close to reaching my next subscriber goal, and it would be great if you join me on this journey. But to do that, we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 3/4 of you that are watching this video right now are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, and that hurts my feelings. Regardless, I want to thank you for giving me some of your attention and time, and I'll see you on the next one.